Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Secure. I'm your host, Emily, dating and relationship coach specializing in all things attachment. And if you're watching the video of this on YouTube, you may see my funky blue light glasses because it is 11:13, and I was like, I just really want to record something right now. Also, something super exciting happened. I got a notification today from my podcast hosting service that said we have hit 5,000 downloads, which might sound like a lot or it might not sound like a lot, depending on your experience with podcasts. But that was so exciting to me, just knowing that there are so many of you who are listening and gaining things from this podcast and just enjoying it. It's been so fun to do this. I started back in, I think, December. I posted the first episode, and so I just appreciate all of you who have been with me since the beginning or joined me somewhere along the way. I'm really loving doing this, and I had like a desire to do a podcast basically since the start of my coaching business, and for some reason it took me like 3 years in to actually start it. Thank you guys so much for the love and the support. So we're gonna get into today's topic, which is actually inspired by a DM that I got from one of you guys on here. Um, Thanks for the suggestion. I'm not going to say her name, but you know who you are. Which was this question. So she asked me, how do you have the what are you looking for conversation without sounding too intense? Right? Like you're getting to know someone new, or even just like considering maybe getting to know someone and you want to make sure you guys are on the same page. And maybe this is something that feels really like high stakes, gives you a lot of anxiety, or maybe you've just never known exactly like how to go about having that conversation. So we're going to dive into all those things today. So the first thing that I want you to do is actually ask yourself, why do I feel like this is an intense or a high stakes conversation? High stakes is something you'll hear me say a lot. You don't really know what I mean. It's kind of like there's a lot of intensity around it where it feels like it might make or break a connection. It feels like, like you're catastrophizing, like the world is going to end. Um, it's like when um, if I were to compare a couple examples, like when you're just sitting on a beach and you're chill and you're like listening to the waves and hearing the birds and feeling the breeze, that's pretty low stakes. You're just feeling chill. High stakes is like when you don't get a text back from a guy and you start spiraling and you feel like the relationship is over or you feel intensely unsafe in your body. That is high stakes. So, this conversation, does it feel high stakes for you? Why might that be? So, here are a few things that often come up for people. Number one, are you afraid that having that conversation will push this person away? Or that knowing what you want makes you intense? Is there an association there? Like, if I'm clear or direct about what I want, then that makes me really intense. Do you feel like you have to downplay what you're wanting? Like maybe it's not cool if you're clear or direct, or it makes you really like weak or vulnerable to admit that you want something more serious, or it makes you lame, or whatever it may be. What are your associations there? And another thing to consider is, are you approaching the conversation with intensity because you've been burned a lot of times in the past? That can totally be a thing too, where you're like drilling the guy, you are um, just asking really intense questions, whether it's like about his intentions. And you guys probably know by this point, I'm all for vetting and vetting well, but vetting doesn't mean that you're interrogating someone. And so if you are bringing this intensity to the conversation, which some of you could be, think about like why that is happening, and are you maybe projecting some past experiences onto this person? Can you get aware of that? Can you take accountability for that? Because that's actually not fair for that person, and that is one way that you can push away healthy people. Next one would be, are you making his response or potential response mean something about whether you deserve something serious? whether you deserve a romantic partner, whether you deserve a relationship, whether you are worthy of the kind of love that you actually want. Next one would be, are you attaching to the idea of him before you even know if he wants the same thing? Okay, maybe you've gone on one date or a few dates and you're like, oh my gosh, this person is just amazing. And like, I really need them to be on the same page as me because I'm already getting attached to who they are. And so it feels scary now to bring up the conversation because what if they don't want the same thing and then it just crashes and burns? Or maybe there's a fear that, again, bringing it up can make you seem too needy or desperate or something like that. So I just want you to kind of take a moment and get curious about what are the stories coming up for you, the associations that you have with asking this question or having this conversation. And now we're going to shift into some different perspectives that I want you to consider. The first one. Okay, number one. So, as someone who is primarily secure in my attachment now, this is not a question that I avoid or that I think anything of. It is like the most natural question in the world to me to ask someone that I have a romantic interest in. I don't feel any sort of activation or anxiety in my body at all when I ask this question. And I can also attest to the fact that when I have felt that, it's actually because I waited too long to ask it. It's because I waited until I did have an attachment to the outcome to that person before I asked it. And so I let myself develop feelings before it was actually um, wise of me to do so. So now I do not feel any sort of anxiety about this. And like it just feels so normal to me, and that's absolutely possible for you to feel too. So this is a question that I scan for it on dating profiles. I look at what people say that they're looking for, and then I will ask them in conversation when we match as well. If I don't really get to it on there, I will definitely ask it on the first date. But I often do ask this before I even go on a first date as just a vetting question. Like I don't want to waste time on people who are not even close to being aligned for me. And the person who is aligned for me is someone who knows that they're ready for a serious relationship and they are looking to get married. Anyone who's like, yeah, I don't really know if I want to get married, not for me. Anyone who's like, yeah, I just kind of want to see where things go, not for me. And it's not personal, it's just not for me. That is somebody else's cup of tea or somebody else's mess that they want to deal with, or maybe they'll find someone who is equally uncertain and it works for them, but that is not for me, and I am unashamed and unapologetic about that. And that's how I've been in dating for the last several years, and it's so much better. It brings you so much more calm and peace knowing that you're not trying to like fit into what you think someone else wants, and you're not afraid to have the hard conversations or say what you're actually looking for. Like it doesn't serve you at all to try to downplay or misrepresent what you're looking for because you're hoping that you'll be able to keep that person. If you have to do that, that's not your person, and they're not like good for your nervous system either. So this is a question that I'll often ask before I even get to date one. Now, obviously, there are times when you meet someone in person, and so you can't necessarily ask them in a dating app conversation because you've met them out and about. But you can absolutely ask this on a first date, and I would not go more than two dates without asking this to save you time, save you heartache, save the other person time and heartache. So, super important to have this conversation early on. Number two, perspective number two to consider is that someone who is secure and looking for the same thing as you loves this question because it provides clarity instead of confusion. Secure people operate in a way that is clear, that is direct. They don't want to dance around the subject or play games. They don't avoid hard conversations. They see them as an important part of building a healthy relationship with someone. It's not anything that they feel weird about or that they are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about that or this or that. No, it's literally as like simple as breathing air. So the only people that are actually put off by this question are the people who want to have their cake and eat it too. Basically, the people who benefit from living in this gray area. And that is an area that will actually cause you more anxiety. So it's only benefiting them and it's hurting you. Someone who doesn't like this question simply does not want the same thing as you and is not capable of giving you the healthy relationship that you want. And it really doesn't matter how you go about asking it. So I think one of the things that, especially like anxious leaning attachers, but fearful avoidance with an anxious lean too, can do is sort of fixate on like, oh, I need to just say it the right way. And if I can just say it the right way, then the person will stay and, they won't leave and it'll work out. And that's not actually true. Most of the time, that's like not going to be the case. And that actually puts you in a lot of situations where you're pursuing very fragile connections. Like that's a lot of pressure and weight for the connection to only work out based on you being perfect. Oof, I don't want that for you, and I will not have that for me. So, not that I am the, perfect example by any means. I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, but like let my example be inspiration to you that you don't have to do this either. So, when you are, um, my cat will not shut up. And I am like, I'm really trying to focus, but she is upset. She's outside my bedroom door. She's trying to get in here, but she's too loud while I'm recording. So, okay, so yes, it does not matter how you go about asking this question. The important thing is just that you ask it. Their response is going to be the same either way. Like if that person is not ready, it doesn't matter what way you ask them what they're looking for. The answer is going to be the same. So you can take that pressure off of yourself to be perfect, knowing that someone who wants the same thing as you doesn't require you to be perfect. So you are also protecting yourself from a lot of potential heartbreak if you ask this early on. And I believe I'm going to talk a bit more about this in just a moment further down. Yes, it's about how it's easier to ask this when you don't have that degree of attachment. So going into my next point, I want you to start putting yourself and how you feel above what any guy thinks of you. I want you to kind of be a little bit like go over the edge and then come back to balance where like you just don't care. You just like don't give a flip about what his opinion is. Obviously, you need to be with someone who, thinks highly of you. But my point is, if you're nervous that some guy will think you're too much or too intense for asking this, his opinion is actually none of your business. It does not matter what is going on inside of his brain. It does not concern you. What concerns you is what he actually responds and what his actions show you. So, and also what matters here is just that you get the clarity you need. And a person worth pursuing won't have judgments about you for asking this question, won't have judgments about you for being direct, for owning what you want. They will actually find it very attractive. Again, because it goes back to secure, healthy people want to be with someone who is also secure or working towards secure and who isn't playing games. So it is your responsibility to protect you, not to make some other guy happy or enable some guy who is just trying to have his cake and eat it too. And having this conversation early on, meaning like within the first couple dates, is one of the most loving things that you can do for yourself. I'm going to say that again. Having this conversation early on is one of the most loving things you can do for yourself. It will empower you, it will improve your self-worth to have these direct conversations early on because you're not putting yourself in situations that could hurt you. You are mitigating, the risk by eliminating unnecessary pain. Now, there's always some risk and some potential to get hurt in relationships. That is just a given. We can't avoid pain across the board, but we can do a lot that's actually so loving and protective for ourselves to eliminate unnecessary pain. And part of that is having hard conversations and not avoiding them. And so it will prevent a lot of future anxiety for you to have this conversation early because anxiety actually increases as you attach more to someone. So it will never be easier to have this question, to ask this question than it is on the first date or the second date. Because, I mean, easiest on the first date or even before you go on a date because you have no attachment to that person, or at least you shouldn't yet. If you do, you're attaching to the idea of that person. So as you build a connection with someone, it's going to feel scarier and scarier to ask this. And it's going to, like, your anxiety is going to feel more and more increased because you're living in this land of uncertainty and you don't know if you're on the same page, but simultaneously you're developing stronger and stronger feelings for them. So it's actually not really a safe, like, environment for you to be growing feelings for them because one conversation could quote unquote make or break the dynamic when really it just means that you were keeping the connection together by abandoning yourself, by abandoning what you really want. So we don't want to do that. We want to practice honoring ourselves, setting our boundaries, having hard conversations, because that is very secure behavior, and secure behavior is going to be very attractive to someone else who is secure and values you and respects you and can give you the kind of relationship you actually want. Okay, number four, perspective number four. Asking this question doesn't mean I'm committing to you and interested in starting a relationship with you right now. Okay, you can't know that yet, and neither can he. You're just talking about general intentions and goals and just making sure that they line up so that no one is wasting their time. But there's a big difference between a man who just wants to go with the flow or keep things casual and like isn't sure versus a man who is actively looking for his wife. Okay, big, big difference. So one of these men will leave you feeling like you're asking for too much when you just want to know like how he feels when you're trying to get commitment from him. And the other one will lead the relationship with direction and clarity, and you won't be wondering what you mean to him. You won't be wondering if you're on the same page. That kind of relationship feels a lot better to your nervous system. And it's so much better for building your self esteem and actually helping you heal and repattern some of your anxious or avoidant attachment wounds versus the previous dynamic, which actually deepens those wounds and like erodes at your self worth. Okay, so point number five, we are not trying to convince anyone to want what you want. We are just observing and evaluating. So we are not also trying to prove to him or convince him that you are worth committing to or you are worth becoming relationship ready for or any of those things. You just need to ask and observe and evaluate if it matches what you want. Now, your default thoughts might be something like, okay, so this is kind of the train of thought happening at a subconscious level, meaning you might not be aware of it unless you do work with someone like me who can help you see some of these things, or you might have a little bit of awareness around these things. So the default like story might be something like his reaction means something about me. His reaction means that I'm not good enough, that I'm asking for too much, that I'm too intense, that I am, too much, any of those things. But this is not true. And let me preface that when you feel this intense reaction about this sort of question, there usually is some sort of high stakes story where, like, this means something about you or the love that you get to have or don't get to have. So these things are not true, but these stories are your attachment trauma talking, so they feel very true. They feel true deep in your body. Again, you'll feel like this reaction in your chest or your stomach where you're like, I can't ask this because it's not safe, because it's gonna maybe it's going to reinforce all these fears that I have. But when something feels deeply true like this, where it's very high stakes, it's actually not a sign of truth. It's a sign of a belief system that is stored in your subconscious and your nervous system. And it will feel very true because you have lived experiences where you went through something traumatic and then your brain interpreted that. Oh, this means this, when it actually doesn't mean that. Because when you went through those experiences, most likely as a young child, your brain could not logically understand what was what. You couldn't understand that, like, oh, this is just mom is too busy or dad is emotionally unavailable. Instead, your brain thinks everything's about you at that age. And so, before age like 10 or so. So we internalize a lot of stuff. So then you have this intense experience that's stored in your nervous system, and you have that meaning that's associated with it. And so these things feel very true, but rest assured they are not true. So we want to begin to get curious about what those things are coming up. So the reality is that his response, one way or the other, is not information about you in any way. It's just information about whether he's the right fit for you or not. So we want to not make any meanings about anything that is going on at this point. We don't even have to make him a bad guy if he wants something casual. We are simply evaluating, does this work for me? Does this match? Do our end goals align? Does he seem to know what he wants, or is he dodging the question, or is he brushing off what I'm saying? Those are all things that we need to evaluate. Okay. And then number six thing to consider is imagine. So this is actually kind of a bit of a visualization. So you can have your eyes open for it, but I want you to notice what you're feeling in your body. I want you to imagine maybe this guy that you are interested in, or a previous situation, or even just like dream of a cute guy in your brain that you're like, I would be excited to go on a date with that person. Okay, imagine asking him what his favorite color is. Do you feel anything internally? Maybe you feel some things because you just dreamed up your dream guy and you're thinking about him. But do you feel any sort of activation, or your chest is tight, or you have butterflies, or your breathing quickens, or it's more constricted? Do you feel anything like that when you think about asking him, what's your favorite color? Probably not, right? It's just chill. Now imagine asking him, what are you looking for? Do you notice any shift? What do you feel in your body when you think about asking that? Now, maybe you felt a big difference. Maybe you felt a little difference. I can't say. That's only for you to determine unless you're working with me in a one-on-one setting. But I want you to know that it is possible to feel the same way when you ask both of these questions. That you can actually feel zero activation in your body when you ask about what a man's intentions are, and you cannot take his response personally at all. That is completely possible. That's how I feel. My clients are there or are working on getting there, and they're like worlds ahead of where they were. This is the power of doing attachment work, especially attachment work that is rooted in nervous system work, which is like the work that I do with clients in my one-on-one program, Attachment Alchemy, which, by the way, you can actually apply for this currently, and you can read more about it in the show notes. Attachment Alchemy is my signature one-on-one attachment healing program for the successful woman who's ready to become secure in relationships and attract a man who is emotionally available. What I really like about this program, what is so cool and what I think makes it so unique, is that we combine practical dating, uh, instruction, strategy, things like that, where you will learn how to spot red flags easily, how to attach more slowly, how to pull yourself down out of fantasy land and stop putting the guy on a pedestal. You'll learn to vet for emotional availability, and you'll learn to communicate your needs and your boundaries without feeling like you're too much, or, communicate without feeling too intense, for example, as we're talking about here. And this is paired with the nervous system side of things as well to help you feel less anxious in dating, to not spiral over sudden shifts, and to be able to manage your anxious triggers really, really easily. It actually doesn't have to be that hard um, to be able to regulate through your anxious triggers. It's, again, something that I teach clients how to do, something that I have been able to do for myself. And dating can feel night and day different for you. So you can read more and apply via the link in the show notes. So let's talk about how to have this conversation about what a person is looking for. This question can literally just be asked. So, what are you looking for as far as dating or relationship? And I want you to really approach this with curiosity, where you're not like, so like, what are you looking for? It's kind of approaching it with like the warmth and the curiosity and not so much the like intensity. But I want you to internally just be observing and, don't ignore things. Don't sweep things under the rug. I want you to notice every little thing, but I want you to, again, not attach to the outcome of what he says. And so this is how you remain grounded and not feel so much anxiety about it, where you're just like, okay, like I'm really not attached to which way this goes. It could go either way. I'm just here to see, to evaluate, to find out like, is this guy gonna be my husband? I don't know. We're gonna find out. Rather than like, I need you to say a specific thing because if I don't, or if you don't, I'm going to panic or I'm going to freak out or I'm going to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to find the kind of person that I'm looking for, all kinds of scarcity mindset things that come in. So I want you to detach from what his answer is and really try to just accept what he is actually telling you and then evaluate. Does this work for me? Okay, no, it actually doesn't. And that's okay because there is someone out there who for sure is going to want the same thing as me. There's probably going to be a lot of people who actually want the same thing as you. And when you start expecting more from people, you encounter people who can give you more than the people who like to operate in this kind of indecisive, like gray area where things are confusing and not clear. So, anyway, all right, that is all that I have for you guys today. Please like, share, rate, review the podcast, all the things. It helps a lot. It helps other people find the show. I especially love hearing stories about, like, oh, I sent it to my girlfriend or things like that. So send this to a girlfriend who needs this. And it just really means so much to me that all of you guys are here listening and supporting, and that you're growing alongside with me, that you're finding value in what I'm sharing. So, again, feel free to DM me any topic requests you have. You can send me a message on Instagram at Emily A. Deeney. And like I said, that's actually where the topic for this episode came from. And those are super fun for me to do. So, I'm wishing you all luck and love on your journey towards becoming more secure.